And welcome, one and all, everybody, to Unpopular's review of episode 3 of Xmen 97 with your hosts for the night of the franchise, Sabrina Estella, aka the Wrestling Doll on the UPR Wrestling Channel. And to my left, as far as my side here, your right, would be the founder, co-creator, head of the table, tribal chief of Unpopular Review, point blank period, the executive consultant.
That's me saying hi.
Really? I couldn't tell. I thought you were telling me, oh, keep going, keep going. What more could I say?
I could have thought of like a few other names. Hey, but I didn't know you were a long-term fan. Like, that's amazing.
I mean, I
Of
grew
the
up
comic
watching
books, the
the
movies,
franchise.
the comic books, the movies, or the shows.
It was mostly the shows. I didn't read too many of the comic books growing up, but I do my research from time to time. Sometimes stuff does pop up on my page. So I do read a little bit about it. So I wasn't totally surprised when they showed the relationship with Rogue and Magneto in episode 2. I just didn't know the full extent of it until I read that article. And I was just like, yeah, I could have gone without that. But anyways, enough about episode 2. We're going to talk about episode 3, which starts with the cliffhanger that we got from episode 2 with Jean Grey at the door, which lo and behold turns out to be the real Jean Grey. And ladies and gentlemen, the woman who they thought was Jean Grey turned out to be a clone all this time. How much time? We don't know. That's the $1 million question, because we didn't know how or why this clone even came to be in the first place until later on, with the introduction of a villain so evil that it has more shit, just shuddering, shivering, can't even do a damn thing, can't even be himself because he's so scarred for life from him. The one and only Mr. Sinister, a name that doesn't sound horrifying, but it's always those you gotta watch out for, just like the quiet ones, the ones that lurk in the shadows.
Well, he definitely lurks in the shadow. That's how he enters and exits the room.
And that's how he put in the clone Jean Grey, which we still don't know how long she had been there. Neither of them knew how long they had been in this fiasco of their life that they had. Now Scott's confused. He doesn't know if he's been in love with the real Jean Grey or with her clone all this time, the child that they share. Everybody's confused. And so is the clone. She is losing her mind, even down to when Sinister pops up in her head and tries to take that child away from them, which he does, and he turns the woman evil to the Goblin Queen, so to speak, for the hot spectacle of that episode.
Well, it's what she was created for. She has no control over it. She's the Goblin Queen.
She did get her control back eventually.
No, Jean got into her mind and reminded her that she's also Jean Grey at the same time, but she was created to be the Goblin Queen.
Well, when the life that you were created for, and you get given a new life that's much better, and you get reminded of what you have, you realize that what you've been built for ain't what you want, as seen in several movies about people created for the reasons that their creators and or masters or whatever they like to call themselves like to make for those people.
Well, I thought, just diving into it, I could tell you right now that this was actually one of my favorite episodes. It was my favorite episode for a couple until we got the episode. Most people know what it is, and we'll talk more about that, I believe, next week.
Oh, yeah. I cannot wait to talk about that one. That one's a crazy one. That's all I'm going to say.
But I loved this episode. Mr. Sinister is actually one of my favorite wrestlers. Wrong YouTube channel. Is actually one of my favorite characters and villains from the X-Men series, from the X-Men franchise. I was happy to see him in this one. Played out very, very well. I loved his introduction where B says a man so dastardly that he can only be described as Sinister. I just thought it was just wonderful. X-Men, who in this series is making me realize has a lot of good villains. They have a large rogues gallery. But Mr. Sinister definitely my favorite one out of a list of a whole bunch of them. So it was good to see that. It was good to see the innuendos, I'll say, that they did in this episode. And I just appreciated it. It was a horror movie of sorts, especially during the mansion scene. And the little Easter egg that you might have seen is when Beast got off the elevator, they showed the elevator. And the elevator is actually very reminiscent to the movie The Shining in their elevator. So I just thought that was really, really good and really, really nice touch to this episode, to this series.
Very nice touch. It was a very great episode. Definitely a top one. I mean, they haven't done any wrong episodes so far. It's gotten great reviews all throughout, which was making everybody happy because we've been waiting for so long for a sequel. We finally got it 20-some years later. And when we get to where Sinister has their kid and is trying to infect him with what he had created, to where once they get him out, he is not even halfway done with what he was doing to him, that by the time they got him out and brought him back home, he was so badly infected that they had no choice but to let him go a Bishop to the future, where he eventually grew up to be Cable.
Well, he was trying to make him stronger, right? He was trying to make him impervious to pain and vulnerable. He was trying to help him because in a sense, he considers himself his grandfather. That's an evil dude, as Morph would have you know. And this episode showed a lot about Morph. To show one thing I'll say about this series, and we'll talk more about it as we go into the later episodes. Every episode, they really highlight how powerful each X-Men is. In this case, you got to see how powerful Bishop is, right? He spoiler alert, he ends up leaving at the end of this episode, but they showed a part of the hell scene where Cyclops blasting in full force for quite a while with his alpha beams, and Bishop ate all of it and sent it right back and destroyed all the demons that were flying around. So I mean, that's just showcased the power of Bishop. It shows you the kind of torture that Morph is going through, and I talked a little bit about this with Bad Guy Jackson weeks ago. This episode really also dives down a lot into Morph. They teased the Magneto and they teased the Rogue thing a little bit. They teased them with Gambit. They did a good job there, but they didn't go too much into it. They showed you the drama and how we don't know who's Jean, who's Madeline Pryor. Don't know when it started, but they both have each other's memories. But they also showed Morph and how he's still hurt a lot by what Mr. Sinister did in the original series, right? And they also showed that his secret, how he secretly is he likes men. And I just thought that was very well showcased. That I guess he has a crush on Wolverine, and no one knows. But Jean tapped into his mind and said, "Hey, everybody knows that you have this desire for men." But it was just very, very well done. The only problem I had with this episode, and when I rewatched it to review it today, I noticed that not at the end, but when Magneto said, "Hey, I'm going to formulate a team. We're going to do a strike against Sinister," right? He said, "Wolverine, Beast, and Rogue, you stay here and tend to the wounded." The wounded being Jean Grey. Let's just be real. Cyclops, Morph, and Bishop, you come with me. If I'm going against Mr. Sinister and this Goblin Queen who just whooped our ass in home field advantage, right? I'm bringing my A players. That means Wolverine and Rogue are coming with me, right? Those are some strong ass characters. I'm not leaving them behind, right? But that shows Magneto's ego at the same time. So there might have been well planned. Hey, I can handle this all by myself. You saw his phenomenal battle with the Goblin Queen. He was not able to handle the Goblin Queen. And Magneto is arguably the most powerful mutant on Earth. Arguably. Because that could be also said about Jean Grey. That could also be said about Professor X. That could also be said about Storm. And if you can see in the later episodes of the series, that could be said about Rogue.
Everybody is definitely very powerful in their own way. If anybody were to make a top 10 list of powerful mutants in the X-Men franchise, all of them would be in somebody's top 10 one way or another. And if any of them aren't, you out your damn mind. I'm going to say that. But this episode, it just, like almost every episode so far, has a whirlwind of emotion. It's like a roller coaster. It just drags you in and out everywhere. It pulls at the emotions with things that we can relate to without shoving it down our throats, which a lot of people feel a lot of the stuff nowadays does. Well, by a good handful of people. I mean, sometimes I would talk to my mother and she would mention like, oh, they're putting stuff like this out about the LGBTQ plus community. And I don't want to see that on my TV. And I tell her it's to make people feel like they have somebody they can relate to. Right. So with this episode, and especially in that time period, a lot of people could relate to how Morph would feel, because at that time, some people would talk about it, but very little people would talk about it out of fear of rejection or isolation from society, which is essentially what the mutants were at the time of the original X-Men series coming out. It was about people, normals, fearing what they didn't understand and were trying to just get rid of it or reject it altogether. So series like these are what I enjoy and why I like watching this show so much.
Yeah, and then we're going to actually review episode 4 and 5. One of these is arguably the best episode of the season so far. The other one is arguably the worst episode of the season so far. I'll let you guess which one, and we'll talk about which one. And when we get to it next week, stay tuned to all of our social medias to find out exactly what days these will be reviewed. Looking forward to them. But let me go ahead and give you my personal, as I call it, the line of whether or not I liked this episode. Gets a thumbs up from me. Very entertaining episode. Like I said, this is actually one of my favorites before later episodes. It's still arguably up there. I thought everybody was played very well, so gets a thumbs up from me.
Well, other than what you said about who Magneto brought, excuse me. Other than who Magneto brought with him to the mansion to fight, great episode. Ooh, sorry.
That's okay. All right, well, thank you so much for watching us. Please make sure that you are following us on all social medias and subscribe to our YouTube channel here at Unpopular Review Entertainment, our Unpopular Review Sports channel, our Unpopular Review Wrestling channel. Right now, on Unpopular Review Entertainment, simultaneously with this episode, we have a book review with Steve Superior as well as Danny Say So. So please make sure you tune into that one. For Wrestling Doll, I'm the Exec Consultant. We'll see you right here next time on Unpopular Review. Good night, everybody.